around until the 1950s. So yeah, spray paint before you have marker, which is surprising to me. And if you want a nice little trivia question, magic marker was the first marker for commercial sale starting in 1952.
Makes sense, because that became sort of the proprietary opinion.
Exactly. Yeah, sure.
Not so much anymore, but in our official.
Yeah, because it's fun to say.
Yeah, it's a marker. It creates magic.
Exactly.
I didn't really consider markers as graffiti, because like, yeah, everything like on the inside of a MARTA train or a New York subway car, that's all marker.
All marker. Yeah.
Hey Google, what time does Signal Hill Public Library open?
It's very important for what's called hand styles.
That's right, but we need to talk about cornbread, right?
Yeah, so there's a guy named who will tell anybody who sits still in the outfit. He was the person who invented graffiti.
Yeah.
And he makes a really good case. Unfortunately, there's some other people who are doing the same thing at the same time. But you could still say Cornbread, which was his handle, his tag, was one of the very first people who took up graffiti, starting in 1965.
Yeah, he was quite a 12-year-old. He was a Philly guy, and he was in juvie, and in juvie, he said, I don't want this white bread, I want cornbread. My grandmother made cornbread, and I love that stuff, so he got the nickname Cornbread.
I don't think he got the cornbread, though.
I doubt he got the cornbread. That's very labor-intensive. I mean, compared to this opening.
Also, though, I think at places called Youth Development Center, they don't give you your preferred food, they give you what you're going to eat.
Yeah, like Oliver Twist stuff.
Yeah, no request, please.
No more. So he took that nickname, started writing it on the walls there at his institution that he was in, and then when he got out in 1967, he would take to the streets of Philly, writing his name, Cornbread. Especially like if he knew that his sweetie pie was on the bus, he would write it along the bus route so she could see that and be impressed.
Sometimes running alongside the bus.
Yeah, like while it was going. Other bus lines, and that was sort of the, the beginning, along as we see in, which was already happening in Spanish Harlem, of sort of the early point of graffiti, which is like a name, later on they would call it a tag, and the point was to get that out in as many places as you could, and you were super cool if you did it in like a very risky or hard-to-reach place, like the wall in front of the cop shop, or the water tower, or something like that.
Yeah, and so you add in the flourishes that Chicano.
The beginning, sweetie pie was on the bus, he would write it along the bus route so she could see that and be impressed.
Sometimes running alongside the bus.
Yeah, like while it was going. Other bus lines, and that Cornbread.
No request.
I mean, compared to just opening up a bag of white bread.
Also, though, I think at places called Youth Development Center, they don't give you your preferred food, they give you what you're going to eat.
Yeah, like Oliver Twist stuff.
Yeah, no request, please.
No more. So he took that nickname, started writing it on the walls there at his institution.
No, took up.
Yeah.
And he makes a really good, very important.
It's a marker, it creates magic.
Exactly.
I didn't really consider markers as graffiti, but I was like, yeah, like everything like on the inside of a MARTA train or a New York subway car, like that's all marker.
All marker. Yeah, it is. It's very important for what's called hand styles.
That's right, but we need to talk about cornbread, right?
Yeah, so there's a guy named who will tell anybody who sits still long enough that he was the person who invented graffiti.
Yeah.
And he makes a really good case. Unfortunately, there's some other people who are doing the same thing at the same time. But you could still say Cornbread, which was his handle, his tag, was one of the very first people who took up graffiti, starting in 1965.
Yeah, he was quite a 12-year-old. He's a Philly guy, and he was in juvie, and in juvie, he said, I don't want this white bread, I want cornbread. My grandmother made cornbread, and I love that stuff, so he got the nickname Cornbread.
I don't think he...
Yeah, he was quite a 12-year-old
thing at the same time. But you could still say Cornbread, which was his handle, his tag, was one of the very first people who took up graffiti, starting in 1965.
Yeah, he was quite a 12-year-old. He's a Philly guy, and he was in juvie, and in juvie, he said, I don't want this white bread, I want cornbread. My grandmother made cornbread, and I love that stuff, so he got the nickname Cornbread.
I don't think he got the cornbread, though.
I doubt he got the cornbread. That's very labor-intensive to make cornbread. I mean, compared to just opening up a bag of white bread.
Also, though, I think at places called Youth Development Center, they don't give you your preferred food, they give you what you're going to eat.
Yeah, like Oliver Twist stuff.
Yeah, no request, please.
No more. So he took that nickname, started writing it on the walls there at his institution that he was in, and then when he got out in 1967, he would take to the streets of Philly, writing his name, Cornbread. Especially like if he knew that his sweetie pie was on the bus, he would write it along the bus route so she could see that and be impressed.
Sometimes running alongside the bus.
Yeah, like while it was going. Other bus lines, and that was sort of the, the beginning, along as we'll see in, which was already happening in Spanish Harlem, of sort of the early point of graffiti, which is like a name, later on they would call it a tag, and the point was to get that out in as many places as you could, and like you were super cool if you did it in like a very risky or hard to reach place, like the wall in front of the cop shop, or the top of a water tower, or something like that.
Yeah, and so you add in the flourishes that Chicano kids came up with in the 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s in LA, with getting your tag out there as many places as you can. That is definitely the beginning of of graffiti. And this is where most people point to as the start of the whole thing. In the 60s and 70s in New York City, all of this started to blossom. All these things kind of came together, and just the right hands, and graffiti became a thing, just slowly but surely. Like you said, some of the first people were just writing their names, and they would come up with this tag, and some of the earliest tags came from Spanish Harlem, where you would have your nickname and then a number, like Turk 182. And Turk would be your nickname, 182 would be the street you hailed from. I think Turk 182 was entirely made up. I don't think it was a docudrama. But one of the first two was Huli 204 and Taki 183.
Yeah, Taki 183. Taki was a nickname, a Greek nickname for Dimitri. It still is. But Taki was this is in like 69 or 70, was a delivery worker. So Taki went all over the city. So it was a really good way to get the Taki 183 tag all over the place. And it got so far and wide that Taki was actually part of a New York Times article in 1971. And all of a sudden it inspired people saying, hey, like, this is the cool new thing to do on the street.
Yeah, or else they hated Taki 183 for just New York all over.
Yeah, good point.
That same year that the article on Taki 183 came out, there was the first graffiti crew when it came together. Writers Corner 188, they met at the corner of Audubon and 188th Street, 188th Street, as they say in New York. And the crew was called WC 188. And it was like one of the first ways that people started sharing different style tips and kinds of markers that did different things. It was just the first way that different people doing the same thing came together and figured out how to do it better.
Yeah, and like I said, it was sort of a quantity over quality thing for a while. I think that's sadly kind of part of it now a little bit when I see graffiti around Atlanta. There's some really good stuff, and also some really kind of not so great tags that I see a lot.
Yeah, and more often than not, it's the not so great ones, right? Kind of like watching adults skateboard.
Yeah, I mean, I never said skateboarders. That's a West Coast thing. I never see. I always see those guys trying to do the tricks, but they never learn the tricks.
Exactly. It's exactly like junkie tags, which is I think called toy in the graffiti world.
Oh, really? Toy? If your tag is just sort of not great?
Yeah, if it's just junky, amateurish graffiti, it's toy.
I wonder if these people are like, hey man, I'm not such a great artist. Lay off. I'm trying.
Well, they would say, stop doing what you're doing and go do something else then, because the streets are made for good graffiti.
Not toys.
Right.
The subway was where things got really a little more like artistic, I guess. Riding on a subway train in New York, you could obviously get your name out to more people because that subway is all over the place.
Right.
It's also risky, and as we see, like risk is a big. I mentioned like the wall in front of the police station. Like risk is a big part of it because like as you'll see, like when they made great efforts in the 70s and 80s in New York to stop this stuff, it wasn't like they were like, oh boy, we better stop doing this graffiti. It was sort of like, game on, man. Like, this is what we're looking for. Like, now we know they're after us, so it makes it even more sort of challenging and risky.
Yeah, I mean, these early graffiti artists were, by definition, juvenile delinquents to a person. So the idea of adding more challenges to them just played exactly into their whole ethos. That's never remember.
And to be clear, with this, I just want to, if you don't understand, they're not spray painting the moving subway cars. They would break into the rail yards at night, and all of a sudden have this huge canvas just sitting.
Yeah, exactly. And like you said, a lot of people would see it because that subway car the next day would be traveling all over New York. So that was a big deal. That's kind of what you think of when you think of late 70s, early 80s graffiti in New York. Subway cars kind of traveling all over the place with really cool, colorful graffiti.
Yeah, totally.
Do you want to take an early break, or you want to keep talking and get into some different kinds and styles?
Yeah, maybe let's break down the styles first.
All right, let's do it. So it turns out there's 3 categories of graffiti in order of easiness to increasing hardness. Just kind of get that right here, but I'm leaving it there. There's tags, which Olivia calls very sterilely basic identifying signs.
Well, tags didn't come along until 1990, the word.
Right, but essentially it's your signature, it's your nickname, spelled out in a very stylized way, specific to you. That's what hand style is. And then when you use your hand style to put up that nickname in a certain stylized way on the wall, that today at least, that's a tag. That's one of the 3 kinds of graffiti.
Yeah, and before they called it tagging in 1990, back in the day, as they say, they would call it hitting maybe, or bombing, or just writing.
Yep.
Throw-ups, terrible name, is the next kind. It can incorporate your tag as like your signature, but it's usually more than that. It's tag plus. A lot of times it's multicolor, like 2 or 3 colors, maybe even more if you've got the time. It's more. It's just simply said, it's kind of more artistic.
Yeah, and they're almost always like bubbly letters from what I can tell.
Yeah, unless it's the block style, which I like.
Yeah, Blockbuster?
Yeah.
I like those as well. Those are, it's a different style. They're not throw-ups, it's a kind of a style that could be used in throw-ups. And they're a lot of times used on using rollers. They're really large letters. A lot of times they're more straight than bubbly, which is a differentiation like you were saying. I like Blockbuster too, Josh.
Yeah, me too. And then you've got the best kind. You might get a whole subway car and many hours to decorate this thing, or a whole wall. And those are called pieces, just like you would call an art piece a piece. Because it is an art piece.
For sure. They're way more detailed, way more colors. They have all sorts of crazy cool effects like fades from one color to another. They might have sparkles on them. They might somehow have like a chrome effect. There's a lot more decoration to them. They're just amazing. That's probably what most people think of when they think of graffiti art pieces.
Yeah.
And these all are, they start out easy, like you just practice doing tags, then you move on to throw-ups, and then you move on to pieces eventually. And so they also take different amounts of time. Like once you get good at tagging, you can do this in like less than a minute, maybe 5 if you're just starting out. They can take a minute if you're really, really good and have been doing it a long time to put a throw-up up. It can take 15 minutes if you're still figuring out your way. The pieces, this surprised me, they can take days to do with multiple crews working on the same thing. It can still take days. And if you're just one dude making a piece, a masterpiece, it can take months, weeks, and months to get it done. Which, I mean, if you're doing this illicitly, like on a wall somewhere, having to go back like night after night to do this and not get caught, that's rather thrilling.
Well, and the just the time investment for something that a third of the way through or halfway through or toward the end could go away.
You know, that's gotta hurt. What about wild style? I referred to it early on.
Wild style is obviously super stylized. It's where you get sort of the overlapping letter patterns. It's usually fairly bright, and like you mentioned, like a lot of shading, maybe a 3D effect. A lot of times these pieces have wild style involved.
Right, yeah, it's kind of like the most advanced form, I guess, just because it's really hard to do, and it's the most intricate usually. But it's also kind of like gone beyond what most people appreciate as graffiti, where they have no idea what this thing says. Like other graffiti artists can read it, but the average person is just like, oh, look at that mishmash of colors. It's kind of like how metal bands' logos have kind of evolved too, where you're like, I have no idea whose album this is. It's very much similar, that wild style is. But one thing that stuck out to me, Chuck, wild style, I'm like, that probably came around in maybe the 90s at the early.
1030, please.
It's from the 70s too. Like all of this stuff is from the 70s. So in the 70s in New York City, the general guidelines for what constitutes graffiti still today were laid out and established by those people. Like it's still followed today. I think that's amazing. You know, I thought it'd be added piece by piece over the decades, but no, they figured it out pretty much right out of the gate.
Apologies for the change.
Yeah, that's cool. I love it. And then if you've ever seen like, and this is a little more West Coast, like the Old English style, or like the Western saloon lettering, that's known as Cholo style, a word that, you know, is sort of associated with like gang culture, like Mexican gang culture. But that developed from that Chicano writing culture on the West Coast, and then spread around. Like we can see that on the East Coast, but it's definitely, I feel like, a West Coast thing. And that looks super cool too.
No, it definitely does. There's also, they use a lot of characters, cartoon characters of like gangbang with bandanas like almost over their eyes, that kind of dude.
Yeah.
They show up a lot. It just seems like there's a lot more cartoon figures in Cholo style than it's like New York. There was one more style that I ran across called anti-style or ignorant style, and essentially it's like what most people would call toy. It's just primitive, it's amateurish, but it's done on purpose because it's done by graffiti artists, a lot of whom are actually really good, who are like, this has gotten totally out of control. We've seen this wild style stuff, we need to like get back to basics and just have fun with this again. And so they're kind of trying to recapture what the earliest graffiti artists from like the 70s were doing when they figured it out as they went along. A lot of people hate it, can't stand it. They think it's just a dumb idea, but from what I can tell, if you're a good artist doing purposefully primitive work, it's actually pretty cool looking.
All right. Should we take that break?
I do want to take that break, too.
All right, let's go get our spray cans. Check them out. We'll be right back. Attention parents and grandparents, if you're looking for a gift that's more than just a toy, give them something that inspires confidence and adventure all year long. Give them a Guardian bike, the easiest, safest, and #1 kids bike on the market.
Yeah, with USA-made kid-specific frames and patented safety technology, kids are learning to ride in just one day with no training wheels needed. It's why Guardian is America's favorite kids bike and the New York Times and Wirecutter's top pick 3 years in a row.
That's right, my daughter has a Guardian bike and she loves it, and that thing was really easy to put together. And get this holiday season, Guardian is offering their biggest deal of the year, over 40% in savings on all bikes plus $100 in free accessories. Guardian bikes have become one of the most sought-after gifts of the season, and inventory is going fast. So don't wait. Join over 500,000 families who've discovered the magic of Guardian. Visit GuardianBikes.com to shop now. Support for the show today comes from Public.com. You're thoughtful about where your money goes. You've got core holdings, some recurring crypto buys, maybe even a few strategic options plays on the side. The point is, you're engaged with your investments, and Public gets that.
Yeah, that's why they built an investing platform for those who take it seriously. On Public, you can put together a multi-asset portfolio for the long haul. Stocks, bonds, options, crypto, it's all there. Plus, an industry-leading 3.6% APY high-yield cash account.
Switch to the platform built for those who take investing seriously. Go to public.com/SYSK and earn an uncapped 1% bonus when you transfer your portfolio. That's public.com/SYSK.
Paid for by Public Investing. All investing involves risk of loss, including loss of principal. Brokerage services for U.S. listed registered securities, options, and bonds in a self-directed account are offered by Public Investing, Inc., member FINRA and SIPC. Crypto trading provided by Zero Hash. Complete disclosures available at public.com/disclosures.
This is Sophie Cunningham from Show Me Something. Do you know the symptoms of moderate to severe obstructive sleep apnea, or OSA, in adults with obesity? They may be happening to you without you knowing. If anyone has ever said you snore loudly, or if you spend your days fighting off excessive tiredness, irritability, and concentration issues, it may be due to OSA. OSA is a serious condition where your airway partially or completely collapses during sleep, which may cause breathing interruptions and oxygen deprivation. Learn more at don'tsleeponosa.com. This information is provided by Lilly, a medicine company.
Wanna learn about a terror sort of pterodactyl? How to take a perfect moving all of that fractal. Feeling is gone. That's in the hunt. The lazy border murders and the cannibal runs. Explain everything to your brain explodes. It's just stuff you should know. Word up, Jerry.
All right, so we mentioned markers early on, and obviously, like I said, inside, like on the wall of a subway car. A lot of times, maybe not even inside, but if you just want to provide detail for a larger piece on like the exterior of a subway car or wall or something,
Yeah.
you could use a marker. And in the early days, Pilot marked a lot, and Dry Mark, DRI, and Sanford King Size were they were very broad tip markers, so those were some of the early markers that were the most popular. And you could also refill a lot of those with different kinds of ink. So the felt was just sort of the instrument, and you could put whatever color or mixed colors if you wanted to.
Sure.
And they would also like make their own stuff. It's a very sort of DIY style of art where they were making their own tools and components, maybe like shoe polish bottles and stuff like that.
Yeah. You also mentioned that it's one of the 4 pillars of hip-hop. There's technically 5 as far as Africa Bambaataa is concerned. And that would be knowledge. This is the 5th pillar, like knowledge of self, knowledge of where you come from, your history, real KRS-One stuff, you know?
Yeah.
And so as being a part of hip-hop culture, I don't know if we said the other ones, MCing and DJing and breaking.
Yeah.
And graffiti and knowledge. Those are the 5 pillars of hip-hop. And like the other stuff, like MCing and DJing and breaking in particular, there's a real competitive element to graffiti. Like where you can go so far as you end up in a war with other artists where you're spraying over their stuff, and spraying over your stuff, and that is not, you're not supposed to do that. Like if you spray over somebody's stuff, it better be terrible work, and you better be really good at it, because that's a huge flex, I guess you would say, if it was 2024.
Yeah, for sure. It has also intersected with other art forms over the years. In the 1980s, there was a comic artist named Von Bode who was very influential to this culture. He had a couple of characters, Puck and Cheech Wizard. He came up with these characters like in the 1950s.
Wow.
But then in the 60s, they were in like self-published comics, and then went a little more, I want to say mainstream, obviously not mainstream, but like 72 to 75, they were in the National Lampoon, so a little more mainstream.
Right.
And if you think you've heard that name before, that sounds familiar, you might have heard this on Sure Shot by the Beastie Boys. I'm like Von Bode, I'm a Cheech Wizard, never quitting, so you won't listen.
Very nice. Well said.
Yeah, I knew I'd heard that before. I was like, that's been in a song. I know it.
Yeah, and Cheech Wizard is essentially like a giant wizard hat with legs coming out of it. It's Cheech Wizard, and he's like a wise, smart-ass wizard hat. And I didn't see why, but for some reason graffiti culture just loved that stuff. So Cheech Wizard shows up, and Puck the Lizard show up in a lot of graffiti from the 70s and 80s. And then one of the other influences I saw that that Cheech Wizard or Von Bode had, his lettering for his comics. He from what I can tell, he came up with bubble letters, and that made its way into graffiti directly from Von Bode's comics.
Well, graffiti and the book covers of math books of Gen X kids.
Yep.
I was big into the bubble lettering.
Yeah, using those pens with like the 5 different colors that you can click down.
Yeah, I was okay.
If it would be easier, we could just make it a phone call interview. But if you want to reschedule, that is totally cool.